sorry. January 13th meeting of the Summerfield Town Council will come to order. If you have cell phones or other electronic devices, if you'll put them on silent during the meeting. This time, Linda, would you like to do an invocation?
Dear Lord, I just thank you for tonight we gather here as a community. I pray that you will guide our meeting and that we might do everything that would be within your will. Lord, be with our town council, be with Tim as he's away tonight, be with our staff, and bless each one of them. Lord, thank you. Keep us safe through this weather that's going to be arriving, and help us to do the things that we should do to honor you. And everything that we do in Jesus' name. Amen.
Thank you, Linda. Now we'll stand and join in the pledge of allegiance to the flag. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I hope we can get through this evening pretty rapidly so we don't get home before anything that falls like 1 to 3. We'll go ahead and do our invocations, and we'll start with Valerie.
Valerie Albertson, Town Clerk.
Diane Laughlin.
Mike Adams.
Dina Barnes.
Elizabeth McClellan.
Alicia Flowers.
Scott Whitaker, Town Manager.
Katrina Britt, Finance Officer.
Jim Secor, substituting as town attorney for Bill Hills.
Okay, thank you. At this time, I'd like to excuse Tim Sessoms, our mayor. He's not here tonight. He went on a trip that he goes to every year that he had rearranged, and just happened to be this time. He went down to Louisiana duck hunting, and they got 96 ducks, and he got the flu. So part of that was fun. I'll entertain a motion to excuse Tim Sessoms.
I'll make a motion to excuse Mr. Sessoms.
Second.
Second by Mike Adams. All those in favor, please raise your hand. That passes unanimously. We'll go to our consent agenda, which consists of our meeting agenda, adoption of open and closed session minutes for the December 9th meeting, our financial report, financial officer budget amendment number 3. Are there any other questions, additions?
I had just one small addition. I talked to Valerie about it under the business from the town manager, C, about the public safety recommendation for the study of pressurized hydrants. I remember when we said by consensus that we would direct the manager to schedule a presentation and also to include the other 2 options in that presentation. I just include all the options.
Okay. Without objection, we'll add that to it. And I believe we wanted to remove the closed session.
I'd like to request that we remove the closed session item on the agenda this evening.
Anything else? If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda as amended.
I move that we approve the consent agenda as amended.
Okay, second. All right. All those in favor, please raise your hand. Thank you. Are there any announcements? We'll have a period of public comment, limited to 5 minutes per speaker. Are there any other speakers that need to pass their slip up? Thank you, Jane. We have Mike Mills to come forward and state the name and address for the record.
Michael Mills, 7503 at Addison Lane, Summerfield, for 34 years. Great place to live. I don't have a great place to live. Greenberg to eat though, sorry, right here. My question is, what do you guys do about restaurants? Restaurants in Greens and Summerfield. You smaller, you probably And also like that, I use next to Rebecca's house, use a Red Lobster, use that still like China's. Or we probably do real well in this town, I think. They have like, my fish on this house, this town? Somebody else like fish on this town?
I like going back in the restaurant myself. We don't normally respond directly to any public comments, but if the council's okay, I'll take a quick shot at that. The town usually would not, the town would not direct the development of particular restaurants, but I'll tell you that with the I-73 project coming across Oak Ridge Road, there's a considerable amount of property there that's zoned general business that you may see that in the near future. And so I guess my comment would be to keep your eye out for that in the future and the development of that.
5 or 6 years?
Well, probably sooner than that. So the highway will be done scheduled to be done the end of 2016, so basically 2 years. And to coincide with that, there's likely going to be some development there, but that's yet to be seen as to what exactly.
Water, sewer pump here?
So I think
Water, sewer pump here?
I think we might be getting a little bit too much question for this part, but I'll be glad to talk with you after about individual questions.
Thank you, Mr. Mill. I think part of the problem for restaurants has to do with our water and sewer too, where there's so much property that's needed for the septic that's required. That might be one of the things. All right, Sherry Pickett.
Good evening, everyone. At the last council meeting, you were asked to vote on whether to vote yes or no, whether to accept the NPO's long-range goals for us. And you voted yes, and we're told that that really doesn't mean yes, yes. But to me, it does, and I also feel like that 2040 is really a long way away, so it seems difficult to vote yes for that. And I wanted to ask, I mean, I'm not asking for answers, but is that how the Greenway started? Was that you voted yes to the possibility of that coming? I was just wondering if that was dealt the same way from the NPO. And I went on to the website, it's greensboro-nc.gov, to read more about the details of their long-range plans for transportation. And there's hundreds of pages for all of these areas and all these acronyms that they have on there for all of these plans. And there's listed, I believe there was a letter that was sent out to you that I got a copy, and it listed chapters 4, 5, and 10. And I read through those, and chapter 4 talks about the collector street plans to connect streets to major roads. And I know that that's not really a plan for us here in Summerfield, I was told, but it is still part of that NPO plan on the website. And I personally don't want to see the connector streets, because we live on a dead end and I don't want to connect to the two lanes. Also, in Appendix A on that website, it basically says that the LRTP, the long-range transportation plans, are a result of CO SIP and PM 2.5 SIP. And simply put, that means because of our air quality. SIP means state implemented plan. It limits the emissions for vehicles. So my point is that this costs all billions of dollars, and as a result, many people are losing their homes, land, farms, businesses. There's damage to the environment, disruption of peace and quiet in our town because of the increase in the traffic. And the MPO says that it's allowed time for public input, but personally, I think that if you see that advertisement, most people are not gonna wanna go. Sounds kind of boring, you know, they're busy with their lives and their families. So that was just what I wanted to talk about, was the voting yes on that, and you know exactly what that all means for us. Thanks.
Thank you. Adrian Williamson.
My name is Adrian Mills, I live at 3901 Wilson Road. Last town council meeting, we talked about these roundabouts. And in my day, we called them circles. We used to have one on Summit Avenue, the biggest disaster in the world. And every town I've been through that's got one of these things, it's a disaster. And of course, you can see I'm not for it. And I think that the town of Summerfield, we won't have as much traffic as we have now when you get 220 and I-73 right now. Because I know how much the traffic has picked up by my house since 220 has been worked on. More people are trying to not go down 220 any further than they have to, and I don't blame anybody for trying to miss that mess. And on a positive note, Ms. Witt, Valerie, and Jeff in our athletic field, they are outstanding employees of this town because they all do above and beyond. She got an outstanding report from the CPA that checked us out, and I think, you know, that I always try to have some positive in what I'm trying to say, so congratulations on that. Of course, Valerie, she got a little nod from the group, what was it, month before last. And Jeff did an outstanding job of getting the Summerfield wreck situation straightened out. I read it in the Northwest Observer that he had worked the deal out and got the SMA straightened out, and they're going to be able to use the ball fields. Yeah, that's really what they're designed to do. I'm tickled to death that some people in our group have went above and beyond and done some extra things, and it's refreshing to see that. And I also read we're trying to buy some more land. What in the thunder do we need with any more property? I thought we had enough dinosaurs. I mean, gee whiz. I mean, is there anything out here for sale we ain't gonna buy? I mean, let's think about these things, please. And, I mean, are we just gonna get this town so big, we're just gonna lose all of its little luster? And, you know, then you grew up out here. I've lived out here the biggest part of my life. My wife grew up out here, you know her. Now, this is a little place. We love it, you know? And people moved out here. Because all I heard when we incorporated, how people loved it because it was just a small little town. People could do about what they wanted to do. Had to have 5 acres of land, most of them did, when they come out here and built these big houses. They just wanted to be out of city. And, you know, I'm not against this man here wanting restaurants, but I mean, I've lived out here 50 years, and, you know, biggest part of my life. And, I like going to town, you know, just that little trip, it ain't far. And where we located at, we can go to Madison, we can go to Kernersville, or we can drive over to Greensboro. You know, it's just a little refreshing drive. And that's what I think this town needs, is to stay like it is. And I know you say I don't want to change, but I don't really want too much change. I mean, I don't want to go back to no water, no septic system, anything like it. But I don't want city water, I don't want city sewage. I mean, I own 3 acres of property in Greensboro, and I wouldn't live on not one piece of the property. And they've all been annexed by the city. And that's why I jumped out and went to people's houses, sit down at kitchen tables, and we was trying to incorporate, tell people, hey, you don't want to go through what I done been through. I mean, it just like that, just went down. But it had to come where I wanted to. We didn't stay off I wanted us to. We can stop it now. We can kind of slow down a little bit. I mean, I don't just break it. You know, put the brakes on it. You know, you have to have a little modernization. We don't need to modernize like the city. They have to say it. But anyway, that's about all I got to say for tonight. My time's probably about up, but I appreciate y'all listening to me. Look forward to being with you the rest of this year. Thank you for your prayers. Respect you. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any further public comments? Okay. We'll go into our committee event reports.
Finance committee did not meet in December, but we will meet in January, and the date has been changed to Tuesday, January 20th, due to the holiday on Martin Luther King. So the next meeting will be next Tuesday, January 20th, 7 p.m. at Town Hall.
Thank you. Historical?
We did not meet in December either, but we'll meet in January on the 29th at 7:30, at 7 o'clock at the Town Hall. And we'll be working on our, the projects that we want to take care of this year. We've got a long list as usual, so we've got a busy year ahead of us, and hopefully we'll get a lot accomplished this time.
Thank you. Public safety?
Didn't meet in December, gonna be meeting next Wednesday, whatever day that is. And,
21st.
since the last meeting, which we mentioned in December, Teresa here and Don and I have worked on some simple plans that can be executed to hook the trailer, the generator trailer, up to a suitable vehicle safely, to get it to the location and park it properly, and to hook it up and hopefully end up with powering the facility. It's a start. It's going to be evolved and revised, but we started.
Thank you, Dwayne. I noticed that you had in November minutes to be sure and encourage people to get their chimneys clean for wood burning and permitting for leaves or outdoor burning. It can be obtained online and get a burn permit. So I thought that was a good thing that was mentioned again. Thank you so much. Trails and open space.
Well, I have one good thing I read today that I'll tell everybody, 75 days till summer. Trails will meet again on the 28th of January. We continue to search out a path through Summerfield.
Thank you, Jen. One business from the town manager.
First item, council budget amendment number 2 for town engineering. And this is a big request. We are requesting that we increase the town engineering part of our budget by $15,000 from $15,200 that was budgeted to $30,200. So far this year, we have through December, I believe, about $13,000 we've spent toward our engineering contract. Basically, that's just increased activity with development. We've had more review, we've had a little bit closer review of some of the plans than maybe we have in the past to try to catch some of the things that have been snags for us. But mainly it's just been increased activity, and while the council hasn't necessarily seen all of that activity, I know that our town planner the other day had said she had seen 4 different plans for one piece of property, and we just have a lot coming through the office and planning, and we do set aside, try to contract that, we do contract that out for the engineering. I know she also had made a comment when I was talking to her about the reason for the increases. Part of that has just been also developers seem to be getting a little more creative with their approaches to some of their submittals with their applications, and that's taking some closer scrutiny, particularly in relation to the watershed. And of course, we have a lot of that to deal with that has to be reviewed. So It is a big request, we realize it, and I hope I gave you enough information there to consider it this evening on the agenda sheet.
Isn't there a way that we can pass some of those costs on to the organization?
Yes, and we do when we can. And I'll give you an example. Without naming names, we have a situation right now with one property that we've been dealing with for some time, and it's under new management, that property, and it has to do with stormwater. And rather than allowing our engineer to work very closely directly with that property owner and us being billed, we're basically saying, look, you need to bring us the design yourself, and we'll go from there. And so, you know, there are ways of handling that and keeping it in check, and we try to do that internally. It's just at the end of the day, more activity means more engineering needs for us.
Have we ever considered charging impact fees to developers?
We did make some adjustments on the fees this past year in the budget. And with direct impact fees, I'm not sure exactly what the history is on that. That's something we could look at closer with this coming budget.
If the cost for the engineering is going to keep going up, and we haven't even gotten into businesses, it might be something we need to consider.
So it's basically doubling for the year, correct?
Right, and we're not sure, you know, what the next 6 months will bring. You know, we continue to be busy, and we can look at numbers. We met with the county this last week, and we're going over the numbers over the last 3 years of how many permits have been issued, and that's not significantly increased. But what that doesn't tell you, it doesn't necessarily speak to the activity. It doesn't speak to, for instance, the one property that's had 4 different proposals on it. I mean, that's not reflected. So we ultimately, you know, have a very quantitative set of things we can look at in reference to how many permits get issued, but it doesn't always speak to activity.
Sometimes it depends on where you're in the location, I suppose.
Right.
In addition to, you know.
And this money is coming out of trail development.
Trail development, and I'll speak to that just a little bit because that doesn't signify any decreased interest in that. On the contrary, that is still a very strong priority for the town. The reason that we're requesting that it be taken from there is we have nowhere else in the budget to take it from. The last couple of years, we've had projects, we've had a significant project that's come in under budget that we've been able to pull from when we had these kind of needs, and we don't have that this year. And then of all of the projects, the budget priorities, the big pieces to be done between now and June the 30th in this budget year, this is the one that is still the most unknown as far as the actual cost, because we just can't get there until we settle on a route and go out for design on it. So we feel like rather than pulling, when we have a budget request, pulling from lots of little places, that it makes more sense and it's cleaner in the end to pull it from the one place that we can pull it from right now. And if that requires a budget adjustment on the back end to make that happen, it's in one place instead of a lot.
Scott,
Yes, ma'am.
planning, if I'm reading from the last paragraph here, planning is a key town service, and we anticipate that an additional $15,000 will be needed over the budgeted amount.
Where will that be going to? I'm missing something here.
That is directly, we have a contract with Anderson and Associates. If you ever see any bills, Warren Simmons or Anderson Associates in the check register, that is where those fees go to. And is there anything else at all that comes? It's solely Anderson and Associates.
Okay.
Okay. Any further discussion on it? Anyone like to make a motion? I guess we approve it, or is that what it's?
Yes, it would need a motion. This is specifically a town council budget amendment, unlike what was the finance officer amendments and the consent agenda. So this one needs a specific motion that would ultimately do exactly what's listed there, increasing it within the town engineer contract and decreasing it within trail development.
And if we don't approve it, what then?
It means that we are really, really limited in planning what we can have review without going over the budget. We're close this far in, basically 6 months in, and you know, we limit those calls and reviews as much as we can, but it's just a necessary part of development activity. So we would ultimately have plans that did not get the review that they need.
Another question, Scott. Do you feel with the $15,000 transfer into the town engineering year contract, will that cover us for the rest of the year? There won't be any other impact? Will there be coming back in May, we need another 5,000 or?
Well, we don't anticipate that, and that's why we went ahead and asked for it. I mean, if you just look at it, it's been 13,000 for the first 6 months, and you know, but that same level, you know, we'd be looking at 26,000. But we would rather, if we're going to do it, ask for a judgment, an adjustment. We would rather go ahead and ask for enough that we feel like would cover it, and that's just our best estimate based on where we're at.
What did we budget last year?
I think it was 15,000 even.
And we're up to 15.2. I was just looking back today, back in 2007 and 8, 2008 and 9, we were budgeting 30,000. So back in the times when things were booming, now we never spent that much, but it slowly went down from 30,000 in 2009 to the 27,000 and 20. So you know, it was just quite a time as far as planning and developments, and so we're really getting back up closer to where we were like 2008 and 9.
All right, I'll make a motion to, for the budget amendment number 2. Do I need to do the figures as well?
You could say as written in the.
As written for town engineering to increase $15,000.
Motion was.
A second.
Second by Mike Allen. Any further discussion? All in favor, please raise your hand. Okay, passed unanimously.
The next item, being council budget amendment number 3 for part-time seasonal parks and recreation attendant position. There again, we had budgeted specifically for that this year, and partially because of our busier than anticipated fall season, we had ultimately had more rentals at the athletic park. We basically used our Parks and Rec attendant more than we anticipated, but we really felt like we needed it at the time. And just as a reminder, this position is seasonal, so we have a gap in the winter. For instance, right now, this employee is not working because that's the season he is off until spring season, but we have a very busy spring and fall already scheduled this year. And we still, to keep that designation of a seasonal and part-time employee, we have a certain amount of hours, a maximum amount that we can work this employee during the course of the year, and that's 1,000 hours. And we feel like we need the additional, to increase that, we need the additional for the spring season. And it's different things. It's partly the rentals. It's partly just having busier rentals out there. It's also it's also for security. We've had some recent vandalism in the athletic park, and part of that is a function of not having an employee out there as much as we would like, and we've made some really good strides the last couple of years in security, changing the locks, the security monitoring that we have out there, and we've made some good ground, but this position is really critical because the employee in this position has been working evenings when we've had rental during the seasons, and also a few hours on the weekend to open gates, lock up, just be a presence in the park, and be somebody there to answer questions and to deal with things as they come up. Now, this employee is doing a lot of other things, emptying trash, that we canceled those contracts, and we're doing that internally with this employee too. And we just strongly feel that we don't need to step back for the spring, given the security we need, but mainly just the coverage that we need for the evenings. And it's still, being really frank, it's still not enough. It's still not what we need, but it's an improvement over where we were a year ago before we had this position. And the request is for the additional $4,630 to cover that this hourly increase. And this position doesn't have benefits with it, and so it's just to pay straight salary.
So you're saying that in order to keep that position part-time seasonal, you have to limit it to 1,000 hours? Is that what you said?
Yes, 1,000 hours is 1,000 hours to be,
benefits, no
to
retirement.
keep, the way we set it up was, when you approved the position, you approved it as a seasonal position. And that's really the key word, more than part-time, correct? And so associated with that is 1,000 hours maximum per year. And I think the way this budget's out, we're at 946. This is still not to the maximum, but it's getting close.
So you budgeted for 946 hours?
We budgeted for 576, which was 18 hours a week for only 32 weeks. And he's worked more hours than that, and it's just been determined 32 weeks is just not enough.
I'm missing something.
The long and short is, we budgeted X amount of hours with a new position that we didn't honestly know how it was going to work out, and it has far exceeded our expectations of how well this employee in particular, but the position too, has worked out. And we worked hard in the first half of the budget year, and we went over those hours. And I'm asking you if we can, since it would not be a net increase to the budget, I'm requesting that we have more hours to basically have this similar coverage for the spring season, the next half of the year that we've had for the first half of the budget.
Okay, so this is 1,000 hours per calendar year or per budget year in order for him to remain seasonal?
We would have to keep it both, because it would definitely be under 1,000 for fiscal and calendar. And right now, we budgeted 576 hours, and he's really, this employee is a bargain that cost the town under $8,000 for 576 hours. We've only used 470 hours up and through December. So it's like we haven't used it all yet. So we were just looking at the next 6 months and going, we only have 100 hours left if we go according to this budget. And so we were requesting that we could add another 370 hours so we could almost match in the spring what we've used in the fall.
Okay, so my concern wasn't my concern was that he went over the 1,000 hours, but as long as he's not, I don't have a problem.
So the total we would be asking for would be 946 hours. So the total budget.
The one thing I would add to Mr. Diggs is that from what I've seen, what I've spoken to him as well as to Jeff, just as a positive note, just the extra knowledge base that he brings as far as maintenance, just skill sets that we might otherwise have to outsource, that I just think is a great asset to the town.
And I've heard from citizens, he's just very nice to work with. I mean, we're very fortunate to have him. And I think from the security aspect, it's worth every penny, honestly, just to have coverage there.
Any further discussion? Or you make a motion?
I'll make the motion for budget amendment number 3 for part-time seasonal clerks and that attended position.
And second?
I'll second the motion.
Motion by Ms. Fowler, second by Ms. Kaufman. Any further discussion on the favor, raise your hand.
The only other thing I'd like to know is that's also coming out of the trails budget.
And the next and last budget amendment that we're requesting number 4 for information technology. Specifically here, we're asking for an increase of 3,000. We had budgeted 5,000 for IT, and in short, that's Stone PC Works, who's a longtime contractor that we've used for information technology. And this is, again, just been increased activity in that, for that particular need. Some of the things that go into that is when we bought the new printer copier, required some additional setup beyond what the company that we bought it from provides with the purchase. We also, this past year, in an effort to try to improve our phone system, we took some unused phones from the athletic park and bought some matching ones to go with it. That's not been a seamless transition, getting all of that software talking, and we're about there, right, Valerie? And that's
really
taken,
close.
that's taken some. We've used him instead of using an outside contractor with the phone. We've used Stone PC Works. We also had, and I had updated you about this not too long ago. The firewall that we have for our server and computer system at Town Hall is really a pretty outdated residential unit, and we upgraded that to commercial partially to handle some of the malware, we call it, and some of the ransomware, and the new threat to technology. We basically put in a new firewall, and while that wasn't that expensive, I think it was $1,100 and some dollars for the equipment itself. Required some IT support to get that installed and up and running. So it's just those things that combined. Here we're getting closer than our comfort level on what we spend on it. So we're keeping a check on it and do what we can internally, but as a part of the limited services government and contracting things out, instead of having a dedicated IT person, we have needs to handle the technology.
Does someone's work now?
Everything is pretty much working, minus us, you might not like the music when you're on hold, but we're
We
working on
have
those
different
details.
music now.
We're working on those details, but, but we've come a long way with, internally, with being able to, our voicemail working the way it should, and allowing, having a mechanism for citizens to leave individual messages instead of just a general message. And so, much improved, still a little ways to go to answer your question.
It's 99% there.
Any further discussion on that? Someone like to make a motion? Approve.
I'll make a motion that we approve amendment number 4. And that would be an increasing of $3,000 from 5 to 8, and decreasing $3,000 from the trails development.
Okay, motion by Mr. Adams, second. Second by Ms. McClellan. Further discussion? Not all those in favor, please raise your hand. Motion unanimous.
Okay, the next item, item D, the athletic park, new entrance road development. This is not a new project at all, and but we're making some solid progress on it. I'm going to put this on the screen before you. And first off, part of this is for the citizens' benefit. I'll give just a little bit of backdrop on it. To acclimate everybody what we're looking at. This is facing north. This is what you see on the screen. This is the bottom, the southern part of our athletic park. This is 220. This is Gastown that you're seeing. I hope you can see my cursor from there. And this is Summerfield Road where it spills on, Summerfield Road North where it spills onto 220. Just to give you some background on what's happening here, with this widening project that's going to be completed in 2 years, what happens is the end of Summerfield Road goes away. This whole intersection goes away completely, and what that means for the athletic park is our entrance is just north of there. And so if you are a visitor to our park and you're coming from the north, coming south on 220, you will not be able to cut across and cut into the entrance of our athletic park because there's no cut through in the median. So imagine 220 done, grass median, no cut through. You'll have to go further south, take a turn, a U-turn, and come back and go north to go into the entrance. By the same token, if you're coming out of our park at the main entrance, you will not be able to turn left out of the park and go south on 220 because you can't get across the median. So those, if you're a visitor in that situation, you will have to go north on 220 up above the charter school. That cut through goes away at the charter school also, and you'll have to go up there, do a U-turn, and go south. So we have an access problem. We've known about it for a long time, as these plans have been available for a long time. So if you move down, I'll zoom back out again, this is Gastown, and what this side street that you see to the left, bottom left here, is Summerhaven. It's the side street, residential street that comes out on the Summerfield Road. And what's going to happen is that will be graded straight across. If you can see my cursor, the highway is going to come straight across there. And we're going to have a new intersection with 220 right about here. And that will be an unsignaled intersection. No stoplight there, but it will have a real intersection cut through. So that's probably enough background other than how we got to where we are today, is that this wooded area to the east of 220 right now is, and we'll look at parcels specifically, but is owned by the Ayers family, a limited partnership, and that is subject to some future commercial development. And the Ayers family, the Ayers had said in the past that they would be willing to trade access, basically access for some area to get, for us to put a road in to get to the athletic park, basically behind Gastown, in exchange for the town actually building the road into that. And that's been a project that's long been budgeted for and has been talked about publicly quite a bit in the past. And so there has long been a provision for this when the property was, when this park was built and it was completed back in 2010. The master plan, I cut out just the section that pertains to this. You see, this is the same view. So if you see 220 to the left there, this road into the park that goes around Gastown has been in the master plan since the beginning. And we're finally trying to pull all the details together and execute it now that we're getting closer, because at the end of the day, we want this done by the time the highway's done, so visitors will have better access to the park. And so, again, that's just a view of, specifically of what has been planned all along. And so the next slide is the real important one here. And again, what you see at the bottom left, that is Summer Haven. Sorry, my cursor doesn't show up larger. But that is Summer Haven coming into the left, and it again will be coming across that area to basically meet the proposed line, and that's where your intersection with 220 will be without the signal. But that's still the best access that anybody's going to have to the park. Unless you're going directly in and you're able to access the entrance. And so what you see before you is the latest revision that has been talked about and between the Ayers family, the town engineer, who we will ultimately engage to do some of this work for us, and to explain it. What you see, the yellow line that runs east to west and then north to south, ending in the bulb area, that would be a cul-de-sac. And what you see that's yellow would be a public road. And then what you see coming off of that cul-de-sac going north into the park in red would be would basically be a private road, but that would be the public's access into the park. And then what you see, the green line you see to the left of the cul-de-sac, or the bulb part of the yellow, would be an access to another access for Gastown. Gastown has an issue with access because their southernmost driveway that you see in this picture has already been closed and will be closed for good, and they have a similar challenge of access coming out of their drive as we do with our park, because they're north of the new intersection that we'll be going in. And so how we got to this place is we asked Gastown if they would be willing to give some of the back of their property to trade that in exchange for some access. So we've got basically the Ayers limited partnership, the Ayers family's property, and also Gastown both involved with this. So a little bit hard to see, but there's an area in blue there just to the left of the line, and that's roughly the area that Gastown would be willing to donate to the town in order to put the road through there and to make this happen. And so, let me switch to a different image here for you. Here we go. All right, just to give you an idea, who owns what out there with a real GIS image. What you see in red at the top, of course, that's just our athletic park. The Gastown lot is this area in blue. It's a little bit over 2 acres. These 4 parcels in yellow those are the areas that are subject to future development, and it totals roughly 30 acres. And what we would be talking about as far as placement, what's proposed, is coming down this property line that separates, that's just their internal property line, basically running it straight up this back property line, and taking just the back of this Gastown lot so that we would have room to bring that red line that I showed you before straight up to the athletic park. And so I'll switch back. This is really our main image for this, and really what I'm seeking some approval on tonight is this general alignment. So yellow road, public, in a cul-de-sac ending there at the corner as shown, a red private drive that better aligns than the original plan with the curvature of our parking lot. It's a better place for it to come into our parking lot from what was proposed that was a little further east and a little bit more downhill. And again, with the green showing as an access from Gastown. And the reason that this is divided up like this is one of the concerns is that if this is developed commercially in the future, that we don't create a pass-through because, okay, back to our athletic park, largely children out there using the park. We don't want to create a pass-through from commercial property that may develop with people cutting through the park to go north on 220. We want them to go out to the intersection and use that, the yellow line, if you will. And so what I didn't really clearly say, just above, just north of this cul-de-sac area, there's a little black line there. That would be roughly in that area a gate. We want to control, the town wants to control access through the park when we're closed. We can't control it during the day when the park's open, but at night, when the park's closed, we want to be able to shut off that gate and close that gate and be able to control that. And so that's the primary reason there for the distinction between the public, the yellow part, and private, the red part. And what I'm requesting tonight is basically council's blessing on this general alignment and general approach to this, so that you can turn myself and our town attorney loose to start working with the family and with Gastown to get the land portion of it done, and then so we can get formal drawings from the engineer, and so we can engage them and start bringing this thing to fruition so that we can actually put this road in later this spring is what we're after.
Were our figures that we budgeted last year still accurate as of now?
Well, we had, as far as we budgeted 135,000 for the project. Right now, we anticipate spending somewhere in the neighborhood, I've got a proposal, it's approximately 22,000 on all of the engineering, which includes surveying, the design of the road, the environmental, all of the things that would be required. And that might bring you to the question of us just doing a budget amendment. That engineering would come out of this project, this line item, this 135, and not the 30,200 that we now have for engineering. So, to answer your question, what is still unknown, and it's because we've been trying to figure out this ideal design for a long time, is the next step is getting, once we have that design plan, is getting the actual price on the construction for it. So, a little bit soon to say on if we have enough for construction, but at least we've got a design now that everybody is on board with as far as the parties. I'm asking you this evening if you're on board with this general plan so we can continue to make progress with it.
Another question, Scott.
Okay?
In the inside of the blue area, dotted blue area, it may be kind of an oddball question, but is that conceivable to have additional parking that belongs to the town?
Maybe but probably not, and I'll tell you why. If you zoom in the best I can, it's not a very clear image, but you see this green blob in the middle? That is a berm. It's a highland area there, and then that's a lot of trees. And what we really want is, and it doesn't show in this image well, but you see this that looks like a trailer. Right now, the garden outlet is operating out there. And let me give you a newer Google Earth image to look at. So right now, this green blob here, that's that area. And so what we're proposing, what you see here are different dirt, mulch, brick chips, or whatever. We've got 5 different bins there. What we're proposing is basically bringing the line, getting them to donate right along just to the back side of those. And we really want to leave that tree area and that berm, and we want to make sure we've got a nice landscape buffer there. And by the same token, we would have a little bit of a landscape buffer on the other side of that road, jumping back to this image, have a little bit of that to the east of this red line as a buffer too. So we really wouldn't, to answer your question clearly, we wouldn't want to use that for parking because we want a buffer between going into the park.
Are we building a road on that green line, or are we just giving access in exchange for?
That would just be getting access. That would not be, that would be at the property owners and Gastown's expense to do that. And so what we would be building is yellow and red.
Why is there such a sharp line there? Because that's not a,
Do you mean the right angle of the yellow?
Yes.
Well, originally this plan, that's a good question. Originally the plan was for it to come in a little bit more at a curve and cut through this parcel. But there's two answers to that question. One thing, if we come through that area at some kind of angle and we cut through there, what we do is we create a very small lot for the Ayers family, and from our perspective, our interest is that we don't want to divide their property up in such a way that we ultimately have to consider a variance for them to be able to use that property. And so we're trying to avoid a future variance, but we also, and this was part of the negotiations with the family, we also want to leave that as a developable lot for them, because if we originally were talking about bringing that line really close up to the, closer to Gastown and making that a smaller area, but it really cuts up the road in a bad way. From a development standpoint, that straight in alignment and then straight north alignment creates a commercial road that they could feasibly connect to with fewer problems.
So, is there gonna be a stop sign? It just looks strange to me that it doesn't curve.
Well, and we'll let our engineer, we'll let them design that. But basically, there's just an area there, a stub out for future connections, because I'll go back and I'll give you a little bit of the intent, but, you know, we would not have, this would be something that, get to the right image. There is a,
So this is going to be uncontrolled. So when people come out of the ball field, they can go either north or south, but there's no control to cross 220.
when they come out of our existing,
No, I'm talking about this.
when they come out of this, it will be an intersection across a median that has initially no signal. Now, DOT has said, as they do in situations like this, after the road is built, and we will do a traffic study, we'll analyze it, and if there's the need there that justifies it, traffic flow wise, we'll consider it. And also, taking you back to over a year ago, about a year and a half ago, when we had our own independent traffic engineering study, we included this little area, and right now it just doesn't meet the standards of what warrants a light. But, you know, and again, it'll possibly depend, most likely depend on what commercially gets developed there. But what I wanted to show you in this image, and let me find the best one to show it to you with, is, here we go. So, okay, if you see this area, we're talking about coming down this yellow line, going up this yellow line. So this area that you see here is the end of Moorhead, which is a street off of 220 here that goes back in there and is residential. That is the most likely future connection. That is a desire of the family to ultimately connect that Moorhead up to what is built. And that would be on them to work that out. But back to your question, the alignment that I'm showing you in that picture is basically gives them an area to connect to in the future. And that's been their request all along, was to trade the access to our park for the construction of something that would be the start of a usable network for them.
I think it's Moorfield, isn't it?
Did I say Moorhead? Moorfield, I'm sorry. And I hope that gives the public a little insight into how all that's developing out there. You might not have known those details about what happens with the intersection, what happens at the end of Summerfield Road. A lot of change coming.
A lot of U-turns at Scalesville Road.
Right.
It's gonna be for sure if nothing's there.
So again, what I'm requesting is just your approval of this general alignment and plan, with the caveat being that once it gets designed, it may, move over 10 feet here or there, depending on if there's some kind of obstacle or something. But I don't want to have to come back to council every time and ask for minor modifications if you're okay with the general plan that I've gone over and this approach.
So just kind of a head nod and no objection. Just
No
fine.
need for a motion.
A motion is needed?
No.
No, the reason it's not, it's just, I think, just as long as nobody's got any.
And so to be clear, with that consensus that I'm hearing, the next step will be to engage the engineer for something a little fancier than my diagram that I put up for you, a little more official looking, and also starting with our attorney's office and working with the family in relation to very specifically defining what area needs to be carved out, and that's what we're trying to
The
see.
email you sent today, everybody was agreed as a
Yes, and so I walked the property with the owner of Gastown back there, and just late last week, the Ayers family, through their representative, has been, said that they have discussed this in the last few days, and that they are on board with this general alignment of the plan.
Okay.
The engineer indicated that he feels like this is really kind of the best of everything we're trying to do, because we have town's interest, Gastown's interest, the Ayers family's interest, and we also have the public's interest in, because at the end of the day, we're trying to create something that more safely gets them out to the highway without doing U-turns and moves them in and out safely. So there are a lot of factors that went into those few colored lines you see on the screen.
Is the, when we talk about the garden center in Gastown, we're talking about one and the same person. The lease that the garden center has with Gastown is not going to affect that back piece there or anything?
Well, the owner, there's an owner of, it's Gastown Incorporated. They lease that. I honestly don't know the details of the lease, and I did have some questions when I met with the owner, because that's a very active, the garden outlet is a very active business out there. And I expressed to him that if this project comes to fruition the way it's drawn and planned as you see, that we would not want the garden outlet, for instance, using, and their customers routinely cutting through our park. And so they understand the town's interest in that being private, that having a gate that would be closed sometimes. And my questions to the owner of Gastown were, if you have access here as drawn, do you see any issues for that for your tenant, for the garden outlet? And the feeling was, no, that should be workable on his end. And we feel like we need to work directly with the property owner and not the tenant out there. So, I have not approached Gastown because I feel like that's not our place to do that, but the owner directly.
And that's just a deed of access.
Yes, and they would be constructing whatever is needed to have that access.
And maybe donating us
Right, roughly the blue area that you see there. So we walked it, we didn't drive stakes in the ground, and again, that's for the surveyors and the designers. But in general, that plan is very agreeable to them, because they want improved access, because if you look, their situation is with that southern driveway being completely gone. Again, they're going to be in a very similar position when the road's done that we are with our main entrance.
So you don't need a motion, you just need knowledge.
Well, I was looking for a motion, but I think a consensus, that if a consensus is okay, I think it's fine, as long as I've got something that's clear direction from you that you're okay with this plan. We're going to run full steam ahead trying to get it to fruition.
There's nothing inappropriate about a motion if you want to go to that stage, but it's not required.
Okay, and put something else on the screen. Next item on the agenda, item 8E, the community park maintenance walkway improvement. Okay, just to acclimate the public there, that's our main gate right up the street here into the park, looking north. And when the park was built, specifically when this gate was installed, it's a large iron gate that comes together, closes in the middle, and right now that gate stays closed and locked most of the time, unless we're having an event out there. And the issue with that is if you park at the school and if you try to use that as access as a pedestrian, you have to walk around the gate. And so without getting into the reasons of why there wasn't some kind of smaller gate there, basically right now it's closed off. What you see in this diagram on the screen, this little red area, is an aerial view of an attempted solution to allow, for instance, someone in a wheelchair, someone with a stroller, to basically go in at the main gate and use, when the park is open, and use that. And honestly, it's a failed attempt at that. It doesn't work. It was a project that's been done a few years back. It was done with sand, soft surface, and it's just on a grade, and most of that sand ended up at the bottom of the hill down near our bridge on the way to the amphitheater. And it washes, and there's gullies there, and it's not very conducive. For instance, if someone had a stroller or they were in a wheelchair. And so we've been looking at options of trying to improve that, and there are a couple of different approaches to it. One of the approaches, and just to lay this out a little better, this is a sidewalk coming from the school, and these white hatch lines across Summerfield are it's a crosswalk area for students, because students often come over here and use it, and right now they go around that sandy area too. And at each end of the gate you have large stone columns that support the gate. And our approach to trying to remedy this situation, kind of looked at it two ways. We could cut that gate and basically create a door, a smaller door within the gate, or we could do something more permanent around the outside column. And let me answer the first question, well, why do we not just go out there every day and open the gate and be done with it and close it? The big reason is access. It's such a big gate, it's such a wide driveway, it invites vehicular traffic, and there's nowhere to go and we don't want cars around here. So without having somebody and some mechanism there, we don't keep that open unless it's an event that somebody's manning that gate. So back to the solutions. We looked at cutting a door within the main gate, and we got pricing on that from vendors. Ultimately, it cost us about $1,600 to cut the gate up, weld in some bracing, create a door, and that would be a door that we would go out and open and close every day, morning and evening with park hours. And we looked at that option. We also looked at what I'm asking you about this evening, and that is doing this permanently, this red area around the column, doing it permanently in pavers. And that cost is, we've got quotes on that too, and that's actually $4,260 to go that approach. And what you have is, you can't see it in this area, but you have asphalt down that road, and then you have, it's lined on each side with brick pavers, which is replicated in other parts of the park. And so what is proposed, what's involved with that 4260 would be building in that red area with pavers to match up to the end of the road, building that area out and making it also ADA accessible so wheelchairs could safely go around that too. It is a big price difference. I guess as to why there's a preference internally that we do the go around with pavers instead of cutting the gate is largely because if we do the door within a door within a gate, we're going to be going out there every day and locking and unlocking, and we're going to have to, it's going to be a lot of hands-on, just making sure that's locked closed, and it's just one more thing with a very limited staff that we don't want to do. We also, there's some questions about, you know, how we sacrifice the integrity of the gate by cutting it up because it is such a large gate. That's one of the concerns, but basically we have two different options. I could have proceeded with this as far as either of those amounts. They're within my authority to approve as the manager, but what is not within my authority is because, or why I'm bringing it to you, is had we specifically budgeted for this, I could approve it, but we didn't specifically budget for this project. We didn't know which way we were going to go with it yet. And my request is specifically the council's approval to do the walk-around option instead. It wouldn't have to be, wouldn't require daily attention twice a day.
Why did you have to knock that?
The internal gate, you're not gonna walk about.
Yeah.
Just leave it open, I mean, whoever comes out first can open it.
Well, the park does close. I think if you have a gate that has a door that's open at 9 o'clock or after dark, I think it says the park's open from a practical standpoint. Now, the other part of that is not just having somebody come out on, you know, during the week, in the morning and evening and make sure it's closed, whether it's locked or not, but also the weekends, because back to our earlier conversation, we still don't have weekend coverage for our parks. We've got a few hours that we can, for that part-time seasonal position, that we have someone to do some things on the weekend, but literally that's very limited. And so internally, we prefer the approach of just fixing the walkway, just like we had done before, but doing it in a real and permanent fashion.
So this walkway there would be accessible at all times, but the park would
Right.
be closed at some unstable.
Right.
But it looks, I mean, this is just me, I'm not trying to pick at anybody,
Sure.
but I just think it looks odd. I am kind of a symmetrical person.
Mhm.
I think when you come into a park, it should be, you know, like you have the two columns, and then you have the gate, and then you have this border on the side. It looks odd to me. And it's a very stupid design, and it has nothing to do with you or any of the current employees. It's just a very stupid design how it was initially done, honestly.
Well, and let me speak to that, because it is a very symmetrical gate.
The gate is, I'm saying if you have a walk around, though, I just think it's gonna make the gate look very odd. You have nothing on one side, then you have this, you know, the pavers and everything on this side. I think it's.
Right. But the thing that's not symmetrical is a little bit hard to see, but if you look up here, all this brown area is really kind of wooded and brush area. But the big change is what is hard to see, are there's some large boulders there, and that was there before the small walk around, the sandy walk around was created. But it is asymmetrical when you're standing in front of it, in that on this side, you have these large boulders that kind of create a little corridor around that column. So it's not as symmetrical as you would think, just looking at the gate itself.
I don't see why we just can't put a door in the gate and leave it out. how much more of an invitation is that than you could walk right around the gate? A walkway around the gate.
But how big is the walkway? I'm just curious, because then you have also people with ATVs coming in, driving
And it's-
around there.
And its minimum is, it would be 5 foot for ADA. It gets, because of the shape of it, it gets, maybe 8 feet or so. In other places, it gets a little wider because of the shape, because it needs to blend into the area nicely.
But I have a question. Did you have a question?
Yes. Why can't they do it like the city does? Put the metal post up with the concrete in it, leave the gate open. That's the way the city does it, probably.
With the bollard?
Yeah.
Or half a gate.
Well, no, the
Why
city,
don't you just
the
open
city
half
just
a
puts
gate?
everyone can't drive a vehicle. I just don't.
Well, and we do have bollards in different places. And a bollard could be installed right behind the gate. And I'm not so sure that there's not one shortly down that pathway.
Put it in front of it,
already.
not behind it.
We talked about that when they did our 10th Street.
A bollard is, think of
Oh, to keep track.
it's a metal pole that lays down
No,
flat.
no, no, no. That's straight up.
That will stand up, right, but it will lay
No,
down.
they just put them straight down in the ground. The city puts 3 of them because they can't drive a
Right,
car.
but if you put it permanently, you can't drive in there to town if they need to.
They
You
got
need
one
a
at the end of
contract.
this street, right? When you go back here,
Right,
that's one.
right.
They have big metal ones you can lift out and move.
It falls over like we do out here.
Honestly, that would be a better idea.
Well, part of the thing with having the gate, if you used a bollard and you just left the gate open all the time, is even with the bollard as wide as that is, we feel like it will still invite, like ATVs and different vehicles from the way down there.
You can keep them out.
But there's a difference if you drive by, and if you're a user out there and you know there is a nice little walk around with the gate, and if you drive by and you see a large gate wide open, I think that's a different scenario, but that's ultimately your call.
My question is, what, right now you've got more of the sand color there, so you're looking at putting brick pavers?
Just brick pavers, and what is down each side, if you look at this kind of brownish area,
So it
that's
would
just
be
brick
less, less contrast. It would at least blend in more with
It
the
won't.
surrounding.
right, and we talked about doing it in asphalt. I mean, you
Right.
could just do that in asphalt. It wouldn't blend in as well with the pavers. And I don't think it would, it's a really small area for asphalt, but to get somebody to come out and do it such a small area, I don't think it's gonna be much less expensive than doing it in pavers. And the feeling is to do it once and to be done with it, the best way to do it would be do it in pavers that match the edge of the road already.
Do you have a deadline that you want on this, or can we look at it a little bit, since it was just given to us?
No, it's your pleasure.
I'm in favor of the cheaper.
I
That should be.
I think it would look better,
I think it would
and I think it's less expensive. It makes more sense to me.
Are you referring to cutting the gate and making a door?
Or opening the gate, like we said, you know,
And putting some-
either of those two options I think would look better. And
You know, that gate always said to me, stay out of the park.
That's what it looks like to
Right.
me.
That's
It
what
looks
it
like,
looks like.
stay out of here.
Right.
It's closed off to you. I've never liked the way that gate looks. Never liked it because it just
It's not
closes you
inviting.
off from
Yeah.
the park. It closes you off from the park. It says, we're closed. I think it would be much more inviting if it was open, like, come in. It's such an inviting
Well, you
place.
just have to go down to the other end of the road and walk up into the park or into the community center here. I mean,
That's what I do actually.
Into the
Even though
park.
I know I can go that way, I actually would come up here as a pet because I.
So if you drive through at midnight, you're not gonna say, call me and say, why is the park gate open?
So did you have a suggestion, Diane, to consider it further, or?
Well, I was just thinking to just table it for till next month or something, and just look at it, get some ideas. Because this is the first time I've known anything about it.
I've been in favor of tabling it for the time being, and just take a look at those barrier, what you call them, bollards, as an option. I don't have a problem, I understand that with the gate there, it does look a little bit closed, but it does keep out people that are maybe running through there with a car, or running through with a motorcycle, or something along that line. I think that's important. But I would like to just personally go out there and look out there and just see symmetrically what Ms. McClellan is referring to. I don't think that I would want to have something so symmetric on both sides that it needs to be that way, because it may not be conducive on the right side or the north side. But I would like to go out and personally take a look at it and see what. But I would like to take a look at the pricing on those bollards and see what you come up with there.
Okay.
Dwayne, did you have some?
Just some comments. I mean, we've got the parking lot right here where people park and they can get out in the park without having to go through that gate. We've got the parking down here where they can get out in the park without having to go through that gate. Who's really using that gate?
The school uses it at times that we don't even know about. They take classes out there, and why wouldn't they? It's a public park right across from them. There's a crosswalk. Teachers take classes out there, and they go there because they're walking, and they're not going to walk down Summerfield Road to the entrance here, and they just go around. They just go around the column. They go around the column like everybody does it. I mean, right now we have the access. It's just we already have the walkway around the column has long been in place, and people use it. It's just a pitiful walk around because it washes, and it's a bad surface. And could we do it in gravel, big gravel? Yeah, we could, and that would keep the sand from washing as much, but it's not very conducive to a wheelchair or a stroller with wheels on it this big. So therein lies the
I just think it would be nice to open a gate at some point to have them where everybody was in the park in general. I think, you know what I mean, if we're going to do that, I just think it would look nice.
And the pavers, I know the pavers there are some that we originally, when we first started, people put the pavers there.
Right.
Sometimes people just go and want to go look at the pavers, and if they're can't get around well, it's not conducive to have a walkway around it that they can't get around on.
They can't park there, though. They're gonna have to come down here to park.
That's a good point.
But
Right, somebody could
We
drop.
certainly don't want to encourage people to park on the side of the road.
No, but somebody could drop someone off and then go to park and come back and pick them up later. I'm just saying, I know probably most of the majority is just walking over that have parked on the school property or something else.
and whether they should or not is another question, but they do park in that school parking lot and walk down through it. That is some people's access point to the park.
And they do park on the side. Oh, yeah.
Okay, so I'm hearing you want to just table that, and you want us to look at the cost of bollards, and you like the idea in general of leaving the gate open all the time? Am I hearing that?
And, considering there's a way to, I don't like the idea of cutting the gate and losing the integrity of the gate. That's to have a little door in there. I don't think that's the right way to go. But the bollards might be another option. And many other locations do that practice. So.
And the next item, 8F, is the budget calendar. And everyone's had that time to review the dates that have been suggested.
Only question I have, Nick, if just a comment, there's the day after the Memorial Day, the May 22nd. And you did realize that was after Memorial Day, and it's just an unfortunate occurrence.
I did, and that was one I struggled with putting on there, but the challenge of trying to put together a calendar like this and work around the parameters of the council and all the components that come into play there is just trying to give people, and you're specifically talking about Tuesday, May 26th.
Right, I think as long as the public hears that it's gonna be then, and
Yeah,
if anybody has anything that they're gonna be gone, they should.
the challenge is just trying to get it presented to the public in time where everyone feels like they've had time to review it before the main date of June 9th, which is our public hearing and potential, budget consideration, potential adoption on it. So, you know, for instance, going later than that week, I feel like a Wednesday wouldn't be ideal, but the most conducive, especially with the church. People don't tend to like to come out on Fridays. Thursday has other problems. Thursday is bridge for some people, and you know, there are very few dates there to be able to do it in time for people to feel like they have adequate review before June 9th. And I know that's without having a special call meeting in June for the budget, which we don't typically do. That's the best I could propose. And so the request is, unless you have changes that you'd like for me to make, or unless you have substantial conflicts with what's on there, is for adoption, so we can go ahead and post the calendar publicly and get it to the media and do the things that we need to do.
Everybody had a chance to review it with them. Do I have a motion to adopt?
I'll make a motion to adopt the 2015-16 budget calendar as presented.
All right, do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor, please raise your hand.
And the last part, reports, updates, and comments, a few things. Just want to mention that we had the legislative meet and greet last week in Oak Ridge, which was a chance for council members and some staff to meet new legislators and county commissioners. Also, the county has it's time for their what they call their multi-jurisdictional hazard mitigation plan. And they had a kickoff meeting today that the town planner and I attended. And that's a process that when it's really a year-long process for the county. We expect a draft in the summer, and then at the end, later this year, we would have an actual plan that all of the jurisdictions have to agree on, and verbatim, you know, without changes, everyone has to agree on that. And part of that is tied to ultimately getting FEMA and other grant monies related to hazard mitigation and emergency services. And so we participated in that today. Council board retreat, just as a reminder, coming up January the 24th. And that will be at the Proximity Hotel in Greensboro. And it will be from 8:30 in the morning on Saturday until 4 p.m. And we have an agenda almost ready to show you folks. And we also, another thing that the public might be interested in too, is I talked with DOT, their right-of-way department recently, in relation to Strader Road. They just brought it to my attention that, and this has been talked about for some time, that they have contacted property owners and basically got it, all affected property owners buy-in to pave that road, so that is expected to be paved probably this spring. And it is one of the last dirt roads, but that's the plan, and that was not initiated by the town. It was, you know, we've been talking about Rodman Road and those improvements, and this was just And that is still waiting on one property owner, since I'm mentioning it, for those improvements decided to be proceeded with. And in that conversation, he told me Strader Road would be likely paved, and those were. I also just quickly, I mentioned a couple months back, property tax issue, struggling with the Gordon property when we purchased that from the June date that we bought it through the end of the year. As a town, we should be exempt. But the county would say, no, you need to pay it for the whole year. And we were paid, of course, in the closing, we were credited up to a purchase date. But what we've taken issue with is from that June date forward through the end of last year. We fought a long and hard battle, and finally the final word from the county attorney was that it constitutes a lien as of January 1st for the coming year. And if you dig down in the statutes and put several statutes together, you can finally come to a reasonable conclusion that that lien is in place for the year and it has to be paid in full. Now, we're exempt as of January 1st this year, we're exempt, but long and short, we paid taxes on the property from the June closing date through the end of December, and we fought it hard and lost. Just as far as an opinion, getting an opinion, and that was the hardest thing, getting someone to clearly communicate. The final overage that we weren't anticipating was $2,300 roughly.
Guilford County is tough.
So,
They are tough.
and that is all I have for my report this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Manager.
I'm sorry, I have one more quick one.
Okay.
This will be really quick. Back to the screen, we've talked about in the past making some changes to better improve just the public's notification of when we have public hearing. And what you're seeing here is our existing sign is 24 by 24 on the left. We're redoing our public hearing signs and to look like what's on the right. Larger lettering of the notice of public hearing itself. Instead of putting basically bumper stickers all over the red one that you see here with the details written in with magic marker, we've got a message that the dates, times, location, and details can all be found on the website, but this is a tube like you see on a real estate sign, and we will put the actual 8.5 by 11, the sheets related to those public hearings in that tube. And that way, if you're a property owner or affected property owner and you see that sign, you can stop and you can get a sheet out of the tube. And it's bigger, it's 3 foot wide, it's a foot wider. And just wanted to let you know that's one of the process improvements that we're doing just to keep the public better notified. And that's all I have.
Okay, thank you.
It does, yes, it's within our, it complies with our sign ordinance.
I broke all my fingernails peeling those bumper stickers off those red signs, so it's a need an improvement.
Do you have any reports, updates, or comments from council? Reported in our mayor's 96 Doug's already, so that's him as far as I know. There's no other business.
I would move that we adjourn this evening.
All in favor? Thank you all.
Oh, you don't
You know, don't say